republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We had a 6:30 joint meeting with the Board of Water Commissioners, but that meeting has been canceled, and an executive session related to that has also been canceled. Our first appointment was at 7 p.m., which is a half hour from now. So I'd like to take up first the reappointments for FY19 from the Historic District Commission. All 5 of the Historic District Commission and Historic Commission members are all up for reappointment. It's Frank Todd, Sarah Bork, John Cardillo, Barbara Breaker, and Len Charney. If it's okay with the board members, I'd like to deal with those reappointments with a single vote, unless someone has a conflict of interest or something.
Give you a motion, Mr. Chairman.
To approve all 5? Okay, all's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it. We also have a request for reappointment by Michael Sabatini to the Historic District Commission only. Michael Sabatini has served on the Historic District Commission since his appointment on December 15, 2014. Because Mr. Sabatini owns property that is covered under historic preservation restriction that is held by the town's Historical Commission, there is a conflict of interest issue with him serving on the Historic Commission, and he has served only on the Historic District Commission. The HDC asked Mr. Sabatini to resign in July of 2017, and Mr. Sabatini has indicated that he wishes to be reappointed despite that request. Would the board like to invite Mr. Sabatini into the meeting on July 16 to discuss this? We received a letter, the letter is dated July 27, 2017, from Frank Todd, the chairman for the Rowley Historic Commission and the Historic District Commission, and from Sarah Bork, the clerk for both of those commissions. It's addressed to Michael Sabatini. Dear Michael, I am writing this letter to ask you for your resignation from the Rowley Historic District Commission. Since April of this year, you have not been in compliance with the Historic Preservation Agreement and have conducted alterations and new construction to the 1911 barn addition without review and written permission from the Historical Commission. Additionally, after receiving a letter dated July 26, 2017 from Building Inspector Ken Ward stating unpermitted activities and violations have recently occurred on the property. These events have brought to light your ethical commitment as an appointed member of a town board and as a licensed professional. Please forward your letter of resignation to Debbie Egan, Town Administrator, at your earliest convenience. So how would the board like to deal with this? Any thoughts?
I would suggest we have him come in on our next meeting.
Right. Well, that's one.
Discuss it, because it's,
That's one
with
possibility.
all the hullabaloo in the newspapers at the time blaming the town for all of his issues over there with the renovation of the barn, et cetera. Basically, it was all because he failed to get permits before doing the work. And being a historic barn, and having been in possession of the historic, the agreement with the town to fulfill the requirements for the historic structure and any renovations to take place, which he disregarded. He ultimately got his permits after the fact, but I think it would behoove him to come in and explain what he did and why he did it. We've had other people, if the Historic Commission is going to mean anything, the requirements to get permits are rather important. So I would suggest we have him come in, he can explain himself and make a decision at that time.
Another alternative or option, seems to me, would be to post the opening, see how many people will qualify or apply, and then have them come in, and if Mike chooses at that time to pursue his request, to have him come in on the same night. And we could look at all the applicants. And I think Mike is only on the Historic Commission.
Right.
It would be, despite what's gone on in the past, and I don't know if it's necessary to rehash all of this, it probably would be better for the town to have someone who would serve on both entities. And if we have a qualified applicant who's willing to do that, that might be a way the board would want to proceed. So that's what I recommend, that we just post the opening, and anyone who wants to apply can, and they can come in and state their qualifications and state their case.
Sounds pretty
Yeah, I don't have any
reasonable to me.
problem with that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
Sounds reasonable.
So that will be on the 16th, which is our next meeting? Yes. Okay, we have an invitation, general business number 1, an invitation from the Peabody Essex Museum to attend a preview of the museum collection on July 10th, 2018. The board has been invited to preview of the Peabody Essex Museum's new collection center at 306 Newburyport Turnpike. The event will be held on Tuesday, July 2nd, and starts at 2:30 p.m. and runs to 4:30 p.m. Dan Monroe, the PEM, Peabody Essex Museum Director, is inviting Chairman Pierce to provide some remarks. Debbie needs to know which selectmen plan to attend, and if Chairman Pierce will attend and provide some remarks. I'm going to be in Canada on that day, so I just can't do it.
That's on the 10th, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be gone, so if anyone else would like to do that.
Would somebody else care that can
What time
attend?
is it?
2:30.
2:30 on the 10th?
Yeah.
And
That's
could provide some remarks then on behalf of the town?
I don't know.
what,
It's a Tuesday,
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
week from.
Yeah, a week from tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I'll do it.
Okay. One thing I can add is, I read on Rowley Talks, and I don't know if this is true or not, but that Peabody Essex Museum has agreed to let all Rowley residents have free admission to the museum, which would be a nice thing, so that might be something you want to verify before.
Yeah, I mean, you go there, once it's supposed to see
Yeah, I do too, it's a great museum.
It is a
Yeah.
good museum.
But I don't know if that's true or not, so.
Well, it's the Rowley, at the Rowley building, not the.
Oh, it's
Essex.
not?
No.
Oh, well,
They have.
No, but the event is at the Rowley building, but I'm saying.
That's correct.
According to Facebook, it was said that the museum, at least not the way I interpret it, the museum would allow Rowley residents to visit the Peabody Museum
Oh,
free of
okay.
charge. So I think that's something we need to verify.
I'll find out.
Yeah.
So there'll be one selectman attending?
I'm gonna try to be there, but I can't
Okay.
guarantee that I will.
Okay,
So,
so I
you want
will,
some remarks also?
some
No,
remarks.
that's fine.
Thank
I
you.
always have something to say.
Okay.
General business number 2 is a letter dated June 19th, 2018, from Jill Skapansky, Sheila Clark, Lori Sheeran, Karen Zimlak, Donna Thibodeau, Bridget Eberhardt, and Diane Kelly, or the Great Marsh Garden Club of Rowley, to the Rowley Cemetery Commission. And I'll read the memo. The Great Marsh Garden Club of Rowley has held a primary mission of civic beautification for many years. Club volunteers have provided annual planting and maintenance of the Veterans Star Memorial Garden at the cemetery. Unfortunately, the Great Marsh Garden Club will be disbanding. We would like to respectfully request your permission to donate our remaining funds to the cemetery for installation of hardscaping around the Veterans Star Memorial Garden. With your approval, the hardscaping plan is to surround the circumference of the Star Garden in brick with a cobblestone edge. We would hire a professional landscape company to install and complete the project this fall. The purpose of this design will preserve the structure of the Star Garden and reduce maintenance. We hope you accept and approve this donation and look forward to learning of our decision.
Yeah. Send a letter of request with heartfelt thanks for the years of devotion they put out, especially to the Star. And how many times I've gone out there and seen them working and everything else.
Yeah.
It's a real loss, and the people, the garden club worked so hard.
Yeah, they provided a great service, and not just on the garden, on the gazebo garden of the town common,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
unfortunately not
Yeah.
looking as well as it used to look, but it's hard to sustain these things, you know, because
Yeah, it
everyone's got
is.
so much to
Well,
do.
the cemetery commission is gonna take this up at our meeting at the end of the month.
Oh, okay.
about the Star Garden?
Yeah, it was a contact, Jill Cook gave me a call
Okay.
a while back, and we had some suggestions and some discussion. And probably the best use of the money would be if they want to, cemetery gives them permission to hire a contractor to do the work. I mean, we get involved in bidding and, you know, all the mechanics that's involved in doing a project for the town, whereas as a private organization, they can probably get the work done at a cheaper price. And, you know, the cemetery commission will okay whatever, I'm sure, whatever they would like to do. And that would maybe leave some leftover money towards future care of the Star Garden or something along that line.
Yeah,
So-
we really need to look to the future about how to take care of the garden.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things I mentioned to her was the fact that, you know, the cemetery will cut the grass and do those kinds of things, but the planting of flowers and stuff in the spring is something that we don't normally do. And if they could, you know, take a look at doing that, that would be very helpful.
Well, I have a feeling there'll be continued volunteer efforts to do that.
That's what I gathered, but I would just assume.
Sort of be ad hoc, I think. You know,
Before we
people
vote, I would just
show up.
assume, let the cemetery commission do its due diligence and have some discussions and then come back and, because there's plenty of time, there's no hurry on this other than we know they're disbanding and want to give the money. Because Jill gave me the impression that for the rest of the summer, there'd be volunteer members who would be willing to take care of the garden, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a matter of what the future holds. So I would recommend we just set this aside at this point. And after cemetery commissioner meets and has a discussion on it, that we can come to an agreement on what should be done and how it should be done.
In the meantime, let's send a letter and, you know, thanks and, you know, of all the hard work they've done
Yes.
over the years. I think that's
You want to
appropriate.
make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? The ayes have it. Okay.
It is disappointing to find that the Great Marsh Garden Club is disbanding.
Well, it's like
They were
it's like everything
good
else.
organization.
The younger generations, like the VFW or the Masons or the Elks, or the younger generation just doesn't get involved in these kinds of things. We know
Right.
from trying to get people to serve on boards, you
Yeah.
just can't find people that are willing to give their time to
Yeah.
do things around town.
Yep.
Okay, I'll take up new business, number 1, which is to award the town computer consultant services contract. The IT coordinators, Sue Bailey and Karen Summit, issued a solicitation for computer consultant services. They received 1 response to the solicitation from the PRS Group. The proposed hourly rate is $95, which is the same as in their last contract. The IT coordinators are recommending that the Board of Selectmen award the computer consultant services contract to the PRS Group. The board should vote to award the contract to the PRS Group and to authorize me to sign the contract.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Sign the contract. Take up old business now. Old business 1 is the update on the fire station and police station addition project. The project is moving along at a great pace. The framing is just about complete in the fire station. The siding on the police station is expected to start this week. Windows are being installed in the police station. Any further comment?
No,
No.
sounds good.
We'll need to vote on that. Old business number 2, update on the Pine Grove School project. The school session ended last Tuesday, June 26th. At the end of the school day, the contractor took over the entire site. There are multiple work shifts running around the clock. Any comments, Joe? Further
Yes,
comments?
I was over to take another walk around on Friday. Larry Berger took me on a walk around through the site. It's amazing to see the deck work that has been done in the all-purpose room. A major concern is that those columns, those arches that are in the all-purpose room, they're about 6 or 8 feet apart, and they're about, well, considering both halves, there are about 16 of them, 18 of them, and they did have termite damage, which we knew about quite a few years ago. And we found they did some testing on it, and they're going to try to do some work on it and see what they can do, what they're getting bids on, doing the work to replace the first 4 feet. They hope that will take care of the renovation on that. But they've done a lot of work around the school. They did pack up Christine Nealon, the school principal, at 2 o'clock on the 26th, and took her up to Triton Middle School, where she will work. She's a 12-month employee, so will work out of the middle school office. And it's just, they're going great guns, doing a great job.
Right. And I think Larry Berger said at the last building committee meeting, which was last Thursday, that they still don't have a good idea about how much this termite infestation is going to cost. They're still trying to figure that out.
They have not got right to a point where they're getting
He said
bids.
it will not be insignificant or something to that.
Yes.
Okay. Third item of old business is the Triton Regional School District Agreement. I asked that this be placed on the agenda because I'd like to talk about the agreement and specifically what we can do to make the agreement better. As we all know, the school committee is in the process of revising some of the provisions of the agreement. Some of those revisions seem to benefit the school district rather than the towns, although one of the things they're working on is changing the assessment form, and I think that would be good for the towns as well. But it seems to me this is a perfect opportunity, since everyone's already looking at the agreement, to include some provisions in there that would give the towns a greater role in the budgeting process. It seems to me that right now the towns have no role in that process. And I came across, I looked at the Triton, the agreement for the Pentucket Regional School System, and in contrast to our agreement, which basically says nothing, there are provisions in there designed to give the towns a formal role in the budgeting process. For example, it creates a regional finance advisory committee made up of the towns and the board of representatives from the board of selectmen and the finance committee of each town that reviews budgetary issues and makes recommendations to the school district on the budget for the coming year. And there are other provisions there. I won't go into great detail, but it seems to me adding something like that to our agreement would be, it might not be a panacea, it might not solve all problems, but it would make the situation better by giving the towns a formal role in the process, which we don't seem to have now. We have, in our agreement, the Triton agreement, we have a provision on communications, but it actually says that these communications meetings are only for the purpose of exchanging information, nothing else. To me, that sounds like we don't want your recommendations, just give us the information and we'll deal with it. Other regional districts have better provisions, like Pentucket, and I think since we're looking at the agreement anyway, why not explore something along those lines that would improve the role of the towns in the process. So I'd like to move forward on that. I'd first like to meet with the chairmans of the other two towns to discuss the issue and see if that's something they'd be willing to do. I've already had discussions with the chairman of the board of Salisbury. She actually contacted me with the same concerns. And we're going to be reaching out to the chairman of the board of Newbury and talk about these and other issues, about how we might make the process better to the towns, to make the towns more involved in the process. So I guess I'm asking for your support in pursuing this. That's all.
I'll give a motion for you to represent the board to the other chairman.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I do have, I'd like to make a couple of comments. I did sit on a committee that discussed the landlord-tenant, and we worked on that for about a year, and we did give some of we did give all of the discussion points to Tom Mullen to review, and that I think we have kind of worked that out to a point where we can move on into other issues. Larry White and I are both on the committee to discuss the Triton agreement with regard to the how the assessments are made.
Right.
And I think this is a great idea, that it would be more formal, and I think coming from you and the other two chairs, I think that could help the situation a lot.
Well, I hope so, but, I'll be sure to keep the board advised of my discussions as they progress. And the changing the assessment formula, I think, is a great idea. It's something that we need, so, I don't want to cast aspersions on that, but I'm not sure about the landlord-tenant thing. I'm not sure how that helps the towns, or what the reason why we're doing this. I'm just not sure, but we need to do something about the lack of communication between the towns and the school district, I think. Bernie?
Yeah, I'm Bernie Cullen, 283 Weathersfield Street. I think that's a great idea. I think anything that can also move the budget cycle earlier so that we have more time and that we're not kind of pinned against the kind of the existing timetable, which essentially leaves us very little time to respond to or even look through in detail the budget proposals that they have. I mean, I think the Pentucket agreement has a lot of pluses to it. It's different, and it doesn't necessarily don't have to be in lockstep with it. But they start their cycle earlier as well, and I see no reason why, at this point, as I've said on a number of occasions, why we couldn't start this budget process as soon as the census for the school is known, because that essentially drives everything else. So as soon as they know what the census is, there'll be variations. It's not locked down, but it'll be pretty clear. Numbers of students, the number of special ed, the primary drivers of the budget will be clear at that point, and that gives us just a lot more time to work this through, and particularly if we're coordinating with the three towns. But I would also urge that we talk about our budget situation with the three towns separately, independently of any then subsequent presentation to the school board, and that we try to work out a procedure with the school board where at the moment is kind of like it's their dog and pony show. I don't mean that to be pejorative, but they present, and we're essentially at the end of a fire hose trying to digest that information in a very short period of time. And this whole process should actually slow it down and enable the towns and Rowley to kind of scrub through their budget proposals in a more rigorous and detailed fashion, than it's more akin to what we do internally. For the water department or the other highway departments, the finance committee gets a chance to basically put all the departments on under the microscope, and I think that would be appropriate here as well.
Just to comment on Mr. Collins' earlier proposal that those figures on the enrollment have to be into the State Department of Education October 1st.
Right.
Larry?
Yes, Larry White, Central Street. I attended the meeting last Thursday where we had this general discussion, and basically the landlord-tenant has been tabled because we realize that there's a bigger elephant in the room, which is the budget, and that's why Rona Lee and others decided to come up with a meeting with just the 3 town Board of Selectmen chairman, Brian Forget and Narissa, who's Brian's boss, and start a preliminary budget discussion as far as what the towns are looking for and what Triton can do. And I think we've succeeded in elevating it to the highest level we can to get some type of action going.
Have they scheduled a meeting?
No, it'll be, I think, over the summer sometime.
Right, that's why Ronald Lee contacted me, and I suggested to her, and I think she really agreed, that instead of all of us meeting with the selectmen first, we should first, the town's chairs should first meet together, and possibly with other town representatives to discuss, our strategy, and I think that's what we're going to try to do.
Right, I mean, that's between
I think we should.
the selectmen and Triton and how you want to
Right.
do things. We're certainly in favor of all towns, all 3 towns chairmen getting together and coming up with a plan.
Unified plan.
Right.
Right.
And we're anxiously waiting to see what we can do to help.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion.
Just one question,
Yes.
would it be possible to get the wording from Nantucket distributed to the board?
Well, sure.
As well as maybe, I don't know how, I'm asking Ahmed or Hamilton, I don't know. Get a couple of versions of
Yeah.
just in the area, I don't want to go all over the state to see what other regional school districts are doing.
Do you have access to those, Debbie?
Yeah, I'm sure they're public documents.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can get them.
I think for our discussion, it would be valuable just to see what kind of wording
Right.
would be helpful, either for or against, but at least give us some homework information ahead of time, so
Sure,
we
no, I
can
think it's a great idea.
discuss it in a more learned.
I mean, I was kind of interested, surprised to see this language in there that we totally don't have, just.
Well, I think we've been stymied, Joe and I have been going the last couple of years to the school committee meetings, and we really don't get any kind of discussion until middle of the winter. And all of a sudden, the schedules, we're down to nitty gritty. We sit here and wait until they tell us what the money is, and we go back and forth, and ultimately it usually comes down a little bit like it has the last couple of years. But it's very frustrating to sit here and be making our budget and having really no good handle on what the school budget is, because the school budget really drives what money we have available for town services. I agree 100% with the plan.
As Bernie said, the problem is this has to be finished early as possible, and I think the fall, the tri-town meeting between the boards, we did it a couple of years ago, and sit down and put our heads together. It's
Yep.
very helpful. Yeah. Things have to change.
Yeah.
I mean, the latest we should be meeting with the school people would be the September meeting, early in September. I mean, I think the board, the 3 towns need to meet
Yeah.
during the summer, maybe
Right.
August at the latest, and come up with, see where things are going, because the time really flies once we
Yeah,
get,
no,
once we get into the fall.
Right.
Time flies really fast.
And other subject matters come up, so, we need to really, because this is 60% of our budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically, the budget cycle starts for the school committee. They start the second week in January, and they hear from the elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school principals, and then from other areas, and then they start putting their budget together. They have to have a final budget to the towns by March 15th. So that's the cycle that we're on right now.
Okay, so we've got a motion that's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Bernie, did you want to say something?
I'm
I
sorry,
would
Brent.
just recommend that I absolutely support the notion of looking at other regional agreements, but it isn't easy to do. So it's going to take, they're kind of complicated documents, and they don't necessarily match up
Yeah.
with each other. So If that gets done, I think somebody needs to work on
And get a template together that looks across the issues that are the key ones for the 310s and just pull that out. So there is a budget section, for example, in both the Triton agreement and the Pentucket agreement. I haven't looked at the Masconomet or any of the other regional school districts, but I'm sure that there's a template that covers those topics. It needs to be extracted so that you can look at the differences.
Even if we just get some discussion points to what things might be discussed, what might be different. We don't have to go into great depth of comparison, but just some ideas other than what we've been doing ourselves for all these years.
Larry?
Just a quick comment. On the Triton website, they have a link for, I think it's all 53 regional school agreements. If you want to go on there and look at different
Okay.
places, they might also have some charts on there that make some comparisons. I've got the link, but I haven't had a chance to look at it.
See if we can take a look at it. That's good.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a 7 p.m. appointment with Alyssa Kayer to discuss the 5K Color Run, Walk for Suicide Awareness and Veterans on September 16, 2018. The board received a memo from Amy Leiden about the request for Color Run. Please see the attached request from Alyssa Kayer for permission to use town roads for a 5K Color Run Walk fundraiser on September 16, 2018. They are holding an event at the RVA as well that day, and any alcohol served at that event would be under the parameters of their existing liquor license, which does not allow service or consumption in the parking lot area. Attached are the comments, concerns from the police chief, fire chief, highway surveyor, and health services coordinator. Alyssa's responses to these comments, concerns are also attached. All department heads are satisfied with Alyssa's responses. Alyssa will provide a general liability certificate of insurance naming the town of Rowley as an additional insured for this event. General liability limit should be at least $1 million occurrence, $3 million aggregate. $2 million is also sufficient once this event has been approved. So, Alyssa, what is a color run, first of all?
It's basically a 5K, and throughout the 5K, there will be powdered color thrown at people, and everybody's going to be covered in color by the end of the run. And all it is cornstarch with food coloring. And that basically rinses off easy, and the only thing I was told that I need to do is go through and make sure all the signs and all the safety, whether it be stop signs or whatnot, make sure those were all cleaned off after the race, and I said I'd personally do that.
Okay, and we have emails from the safety heads in town.
Yeah,
and they're
I had
all-
a meeting with the chief, and I plan to have at least 2 police details. If more, I will have more, and I'll have EMS there, and I think that's about it. I
fire
have to have
chief is-
water stations and
Right.
make sure everybody's hydrated and good to go.
But they're all satisfied.
Yes.
So, any other comments or questions or concerns? Someone want to make a motion to approve the request?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Sounds like fun.
Thank you.
Pick up old business number 4, which is an update on town aquaculture license renewal process. Bob Snow has been in discussions with the Division of Marine Fisheries and Shellfish Commissioner Ron Nealon on the aquaculture license renewal process. He will update the board.
Mr. Chairman, again, been talking to Ron Nealon and then also Chris Shalaki of the Fisheries Division. And there's you have to get the licenses straightened out. And some of the things I've learned going through the process, not that much I know about shell fishing, but I'm starting to learn. The flats belong to the selectmen, just as the common belongs to the selectmen. We make the decisions on the common. when it's low tide and the flats are exposed, they come under our purview. And there's several licenses out there in 2 locations, Hog Island Point and Club Head Sands. And again, I've had several calls between myself, Ron Nealon, the Shellfish Commissioner, and also Chris Schalacki. So as we go forward, in order to straighten this all out about the licenses, what we'll need to do is be 10 days prior to our meeting, not the next meeting, on the meeting before we'll have Chris come in also, is to have a posting, okay, that the licenses are available. But first of all, I've been in talks with Mr. Schalacki, and we have to iron some paperwork out before we go forward. So I don't think it'll be time for the next meeting, but the meeting after, probably, a select meeting, and to have Chris come up. He's willing to come up. He's down in New Bedford. This used to be his area, fisheries. So he'll come up, sit, and walk us through it. Amy Lyden, Amy has been very helpful in this whole process. So again, the licenses out on the flats, okay, some have expired, but we have about a 3-year window, okay, before the state has to come in and actually walk the flats, okay, and they would, dig and take samples of all the different types of clams and all that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, are we talking about having the Shellfish Commissioners attend that meeting, or what?
Yes,
will their role in
I
this be?
believe that we should have a joint meeting with the Shellfish Commissioners in order to.
July 30th?
And Chris Schalacki, okay, either in 2 weeks or in 4 weeks.
I would suggest we probably look at July 30th if you need to
Yeah, I
reach
would
out
think
to the
July
commissioners.
30th, because
Or maybe attend one of their meetings
Yeah.
and give them an update,
could do that too.
Okay.
and then back to the selectmen.
There's a process. Again, we own the flats, okay? The license, we would say, okay, you could have this portion of the flat, then it goes in town for the license, and then it comes back out to the Shellfish Commissioners. So the process, again, I'm not an expert on shellfish, but I'm becoming one. The only thing I know is clams and tartar sauce, that's all I know, but I'm learning a lot more. So, that's where we stand right now. So I probably have a better feel for this in 2 weeks, so we want to put this on the agenda in 2 weeks,
Okay.
and have a little bit more discussion.
So an update on July
An update.
16th with the
Yes.
planned joint meeting with the representative from Division of Marine Fisheries on July 30th.
Sounds good.
Just one question, Bob.
Sure.
When I know we've been giving these licenses out for years, when someone gets a license for an area, is
We're
that,
talking commercial licenses.
right, is that open to anybody? Can anybody dig in that area, or is it open only to the person who has a license?
I
That's, I'm concerned about this.
I believe it's only open to that person at that part of the flat.
Because there's been some question about whether it is or it isn't. I don't know anything about them either, so. but
There's a
that's-
lot to, there's a lot to clamming.
But that's one of the
They
questions I
have
would
put
be
the
looking
nets
to have
down
answered
and,
when we do that.
and secure the nets, and if it goes beyond the 3 years, I know the state has to come out and has to walk the flats. So, but that hasn't happened, so we're in this window here.
Okay.
You want to start your public comment?
That's right. Public comment will begin now and end at 7:15. I'll pick up old business number 6, which is an update on the Didax building. The attorney for Didax met with the zoning review committee last week. I think the meeting went very well. I think all members of correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but I think all members of the zoning review committee were on board with the proposal, thought it was an interesting and something worth proceeding with. And we, at the end of the meeting, we decided to create a overlay district for this area that would allow, which is adjacent to the the train station, we'd call it a transit overlay district or something like that. We decided to proceed with the drafting of that bylaw, and the planning board's going to hold a public hearing on it in the first or second week of September. So we didn't think it would be a good idea to do it in the summer because people are busy and everything, but that's where it stands now. John Smollett, the attorney for Diodax, did say, and I think this is interesting, or we should take note of it, that he's expecting the town, although the building will be transferred to the town free of charge, he's expecting, or will be expecting on the town to come up with some money to improve the roadway to the building. So that was something new that I hadn't heard before. He also mentioned that there's a grant program from the state that could produce the funds to take care of this. So I was wondering if maybe Kirk, we could ask Kirk to do some research into this grant program and give us a memo within, it doesn't have to be as soon as you can, when discussing the grant program, how it works and what money is available, and the timelines and timeframes of that nature. Because if there is free money out there, we should pursue it, seems to me.
Was the attorney talking about going around the back of the building as you come in to the left and around, and then joining what they have planned out in the back?
Yes, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, we'd be using the same driveway.
Right.
Ours would branch off to the town building if, in
Right.
fact, we get that, and the road would go around back to the
Right,
development.
but I'm sure the driveway's gonna need upgrading of some kind. It's customary for the developer to pay for that, but in this situation, if we can get a grant that would defray some of that cost, I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, so,
It just happens. The timing is really good. I was sitting here talking to Representative Brad Hill from the state legislature, and he knows of grant monies that are available, and he would like to do more for the town to put us in touch with these various available funds. And if you want to, I would suggest he would be a good one to start with in contacting, because he did make the offer.
well, that's great.
There's also a connection between the MBTA station and
A foot connection.
Foot
Foot
connection.
connection.
Not for vehicle.
Yeah, not for vehicle, but foot, which is ideal for
Yeah.
that piece of property.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big selling point.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Anything else, Bob?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean,
Yeah.
the road isn't in really bad shape at all. I can understand what they want to do, is they're gonna build the buildings, then they're gonna want a decent driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fire chief's probably gonna require some improvements in
Yeah, oh, yeah.
stormwater management and all that.
It'll all go that same way. It's gotta have room for the trucks and all that kind of thing, but, the road's been there since they built the building.
Right.
I have actually plowed snow there for a number of years. And it's still in fairly decent shape.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we have representatives from the Andy Sunny,
Yeah.
and they seem to think that they're on this evening's agenda. They have that liquor license that's pending, and there's some paperwork that they need to complete and return to this office. And Mrs. Lyden contacted them on June 27th, asked if they would have the paperwork into this office in time for tonight's meeting. There was no response to that. We've been communicating with Emily.
Emily Erickson.
Oh, Emily was out, that explains.
So I think there's some confusion, and they think they're on the agenda, but because we don't have the paperwork, we can't act on
Push it to
it.
the 18th then?
We have a meeting on the 16th and the
16th?
30th.
So can we hit the 16th then?
Could we get your assurance that we'll get that paperwork
I can drop
in?
it off right now. I thought I was bringing it to this meeting. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought
No,
I was
that's
bringing it
fine.
to the meeting, so I have it here with me. I can leave it with you right now.
Sure, we can accept that this evening, but it's
Okay.
not on the
No,
agenda.
I understand. I
And it
understand.
cannot be acted on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry we can't take it up, but, just
I understand.
preclude it from
It's,
doing it.
There's confusion.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Did I skip 5? Skip it. Okay, thanks. Okay, it's time for our 7:15 appointment, and the public comment period is over.
See you in 2 weeks.
The 7:15, Merrimack Valley Planning Commission Director Karen Kennard and Town Planner Kirk Baker will present the Housing Production Plan. Karen and Kirk are here tonight to give a summary of the updated Housing Production Plan. Good
How are
evening.
you?
Thanks for coming.
I have my presentation on a flash drive. Would it make sense to put it up on that TV? I also have
I don't think so.
handouts, whatever the
Yeah.
pleasure of the board is.
I think it would, we can do it. Can we put it on the TV?
How do we do that?
I don't know.
Let me see if I can help.
Don't look at me.
We have the.
For ease of carrying along and taking notes, I have copies as well.
Bob Snow seems to know it. I usually, we have to have a meeting with
Thank you.
So set it up because it's a monitor.
And if we can't watch it on the screen, we have it.
Yeah, right. This is Valley Community Meeting.
There it is. It's 50% of the job here. When you sit down, this might take a second.
In the interest of time, I'm happy to start working through this.
Yeah, sure.
Does that make sense? And if it pops
Yeah,
up on
that's
the
fine.
screen, all the better.
Yep.
So thank you for having me here tonight. We've had a great working relationship with Kirk. We've been to the planning board and we were received well there. So I also want to take this opportunity just to introduce myself. I know Bob and Joe from their roles as commissioners to the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Debbie here. So let's flip to page 2 and spend one slide on who the heck we are and what it is we're doing in general and what it is we're doing here this evening. We are almost 60 years old. We're one of 15 regional planning agencies in the Commonwealth. We care about 15 cities and towns that essentially follow the Merrimack River from Andover and Methuen on the western border to Amesbury, Salisbury, Newburyport to the east. We have about 330,000 residents, and really our mission is to foster the orderly development of the region in coordination with cities and towns. So we do that every day, and we manage state and federal contracts in a variety of areas that include transportation, community and economic development, the environment, and GIS and mapping. And we are lucky to have, as I mentioned, Bob Snow and Joe Perry as commissioners from the town that serve the town very well at our monthly meetings. And we have 15 staff, and our staff's very familiar with your staff in the building. We know well your DPW director and your staff and your assessing office. We really like to be helpful. We really like to leverage the staff you have with the staff that we have. So we took on a new role on page 3. We decided we had nothing else to do, and I'm joking. So we asked for some state grant money, and we actually talked the state into giving us $100,000 to create a first of its kind in the state regional housing plan, from which each of our communities could get their own housing production plan. And I'll spend a moment on what a housing production plan is in a minute, but the value of this to the town is great in that it costs you nothing. So typically, if the town were to decide, oh, we really want to hire a consultant to write a housing production plan for us, that would cost the town on the order of $25,000. So what we did was leverage the $100,000 with some in-house funding that we had, and from that we were able to produce 14 housing production plans. So the idea is value, stretching the state grant dollars, and coming up with an idea that hadn't been heard of in the state. And by approaching this on a regional scale, we're looking at housing as a regional issue, that each city and town is dealing with housing in its own unique way, but as a region, we need to look at creative ways to create housing for all types of people. So I'm on the page that now says Project Overview, which I think is page 4. So we manage state grant money. We've been working at this for, it says 12 months. We're in month 18. I don't think we could have anticipated how interesting it would have been to go to every planning board and every board of selectmen or city council meeting, but we're slogging right through that. We're really proud. To date, we have 8 towns approved in their entirety. Knock on wood, if you like this and I'm successful tonight, Rowley could be number 9. There is no pressure. We're happy that it's a multi-stakeholder process. We met a lot of interesting people along the way. In our 59 years of doing business as a planning agency, we knew the planning people and the assessing people and the DPW people. We didn't know some of the housing advocates. We've come to learn a whole bunch of new people that we might not have otherwise have been able to meet, and we're excited about that. We had 2 meetings in Raleigh. One was in July, and that talked about needs, and one was in December, talking about strategies. My colleague Angela Vincent was here running those with Kirk, which was great. So the idea is,
Yeah, she was very good, by the way.
Oh, good.
You know, we enjoyed working. I was on the planning board at the time.
Oh, super.
so-
She just had a baby, otherwise she'd be here with me.
Oh, I see.
Better her than me. I'd rather be. So, onto the page that says housing production plan. A housing production plan is something that is created and regulated by the state. It's essentially a 5-year roadmap on the kind of housing you'd like to develop. It's a proactive document by communities that look at where they like to see housing and where they want to preserve land for other uses. So a housing production plan has to carry on it with a needs assessment, has to talk about goals for addressing those needs, and then specific strategies for achieving success in those goals. And the ultimate goal of a housing production plan is to get each community that's willing to be proactive about housing to try to achieve what the state declares is a healthy balance of 10% of your housing stock as affordable. Right now, Rowley is not alone in not meeting that 10%. You are at about 4.22%. 94 of your units are subsidized as and certified as affordable. I think it's great. You've experienced a lot of growth, and I think the idea is how do you sustain a reasonable amount of affordable housing with the growth that you've seen. So we are going to go on, and Bob, it's really okay. We're halfway through already.
Sorry, Karen.
No
I
worries.
think the batteries are
This is
dead.
back
You're doing
up.
great.
This is back up.
Yeah.
So the elements of a housing production plan include, as I mentioned, the needs assessment. We look at what Raleigh has right now in terms of demographics, in terms of the people who are here, and in terms of the housing stock that you already have. We look at then development considerations. We look at things like the master plan you have in place and your open space plan. What do you have going on in the town? What are your constraints? What are your constraints to development? Where would you like to preserve open space and not ever have a conversation about housing or any other type of use? So that's an element of this plan. And then the last part of the plan is the meat of the document, the goals and strategies. What do you think you'd like to accomplish in 5 years, all things being equal? And this is a good time for me to remind folks that there is no housing production police. This plan exists for you as a blueprint to follow. No one will come after you and say there's enforcement of this document. It's really a way for you to coalesce as a community and talk about what you'd like to see. And now we're on the one colorful and pretty slide, which talks about overall regional housing needs. As we've traversed the region and in the 15 communities we've been in, these 5 themes keep coming up. Keep going forward.
Okay.
Okay. So the 5 things we've seen in every single community, from Lawrence to Boxford to Salisbury to Rowley to Andover, you name it. Everybody would like to see support for seniors to age in place and age in community. What that really means is people like where they live, and they live where they live for a reason. We want to find a way to respect that and help them to step down. Perhaps they don't need the gigantic house anymore, they need something different. How can the town work to provide that for folks? Every community could benefit from more rental housing. There's a severe shortage of rental at all income levels in every community.
Can I make a comment about that?
You may.
We don't have sewers in this town. Everything's on-site septic system, and I've found over the years with the planning board that developers just don't want to build rental housing. They want to build single-family homes, and we try to get them into duplexes, that sort of thing. But they just don't seem to be interested in building rental housing because of that.
Right, and you're not alone. 3 or 4 other communities are solely septic communities in
Yeah.
our region. So if we're doing something right, we're going to bring to you innovative packaged sewage treatment plants that can work on site. We found some developers that build cottage-style homes, and part of their design is to minimize the need for and yet provide on-site septic that wouldn't be able to tap into a community's sewer because they don't have it. So if we're doing something right, we're going to bring those opportunities to you if they fit here. But we heard septic loud and clear as an issue or an impediment to the kind of growth you may want and have been unable to attract. So we'll get to that one in a second. The third one would be a greater diversity of housing options, multifamily, sometimes that's not the most popular term, congregate housing, transitional housing, accessible housing. 1 in 10 folks would be disabled in some way, and that's a very rough estimate. That's not just physical, that could be cognitive, and that number is expected to go up. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. This region is aging, the country is aging, the state is aging, and we want to be mindful of that need as well. And people don't necessarily want to live alone. We are learning about examples where older folks come together in housing because they don't want to be alone. It's a better way for them to live. So how do you zone for that? How do you plan for that? The fourth one would be housing rehabilitation for older housing stock. Raleigh's one of those communities that could benefit from preserving what it has. And lastly, affordable homeownership options for all income levels, for all ages. Always good to keep in mind.
One quick question for you, and item number 1, support for seniors age in place. I believe it was a couple of years ago, I'd seen an article, it was Andover or North Andover was talking about trying to create an overlay district whereby the issue was that seniors wanted to downsize, but zoning and so on and so forth made the lot sizes and the so on and all these things so big that, I mean, one of the things my wife and I look at, if you want to downsize your house, you got to move out of town because there is no down. But they were talking, I don't know if they ever followed through on it, was having some kind of an overlay district whereby a developer would come in and be allowed to build on quarter-acre lots or half-acre lots, something like that, a smaller house. Because as we know, like down on Central Street here, the lots are going for $400,000 or $500,000. Well, you got to build $1 million house on that to make it go. So I don't know if they ever did anything on that, but it'd be
They
something.
both talked about it. The town of Boxford just passed an expansion of their existing senior overlay. I'm trying to remember the exact language.
Okay.
But what we can do is get you and share with you the language that other communities are using.
Yeah, I think that would be
That's okay.
valuable to discuss. I mean, it's a longer-term project, but I think that's really, we need to look at that because there are a lot of older people. I mean, I spent some time at the Council on Aging, just, having coffee over there, and people are interested in staying in town, but
Right.
they're in a house with three bedrooms by themselves or 2 people.
And stairs.
And stairs, and especially in this town, a lot of older houses, so that, but it's something.
One of the things, I'm glad you mentioned the councils on aging. In every community we went to, some of the most informed people at our community meetings were either council on aging staff or people who frequent that and know exactly that population, because those are valuable people to this conversation. So back to, we want this regional plan to be about sharing. So if we know Boxford or one of the Andovers has the kind of zoning that you might be interested in, that you could tweak to suit your purpose, that's what this is all about. And before 18 months ago, no one was talking about housing in a regional type setting. So we've learned a lot and we've got a lot to share, which is great. So the themes that pertain specifically to Raleigh based on your needs are and stop me if any of this seems surprising, but I bet it won't be. Both the population and the households are increasing. You were among the fastest growing communities between the 2000 census and the 2015 American Community Survey. You're in the top 3. Along with Methuen, Andover, Georgetown.
Essex County or
we are
Massachusetts?
half of it. We are the top
Of your-
half of
okay,
Essex
your area.
County,
Okay,
right.
all right.
So I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. In the last 18 years, you've taken on a lot more households, and the composition of households has changed. You do have more households with children, and you do have more single-person households, which is interesting. That's 2 totally separate groups. As mentioned previously, the over 65 population is estimated to more than double, and your younger population is projected to decline, and those are Mass DOT projections. That's what we have to go by. That's what we anticipate will happen. I think there are only 2 school districts out of 15 in our region that are expected to either stay where they are or grow slightly. Everyone else is expected to see a declining enrollment. You do have way more owners than renters. That is not, you're just in keeping with the rest of the region. And you have a big affordability gap on single-family housing. What does that mean? The cost of a single-family home, the area median sales price, is much higher than the area median income. So the gap here is big. And the idea would be to close that gap, try to provide housing that better meets what people are earning. So the last 3-4 slides pertain to the kinds of strategies that we looked at that would make sense for Rowley based on what we heard, particularly in that second community session in December. And they're organized, and there's just a couple samples on each page. The full list of strategies is in the plan itself. But these strategies we felt were best organized in 3 different areas. Planning and policies. What can you all do as municipal leaders to think about ways to tweak your housing? Are there capacity building strategies? Are there zoning changes that you want to consider to change up that dimensional control to make it easier? Are there updates to municipal policies that you could undertake as leaders? Then there's the production piece. How can the community produce units to attempt to achieve 10% or attempt to achieve what it is you think is reasonable here? And then some preservation strategies which keep those existing units that are affordable to stay affordable. And the good news is sometimes units have a shelf life. 74% of your affordable units are affordable in perpetuity. That's fantastic. That means you don't have to worry about them coming off your subsidized housing inventory. That's a great thing. You don't have to worry about them. The other 24 don't expire till 2043. So the idea is you want to keep affordable units available to you, and you don't want to lose them, and Raleigh's in good shape in that regard.
Why do some expire?
Depends on the type of financing they use
Yeah.
and when it was approved. At a minimum, there's a 15-year deed restriction. Sometimes it's 30. If you're lucky and you've achieved the way you want to achieve it, you can get that perpetuity. But it's a combination of when it got approved and what type of funding mechanism was used.
Mhm.
So the next three
But even the
pages.
perpetuity ones can lapse, can it? I mean, if there's no willing buyer for the house,
That would be
it meets
If
the
the unit-
affordability requirements. Can't the restriction be released by the state, and doesn't the state release those in those circumstances?
they can, but the idea is to prevent that from happening.
Right, okay, and that's what you're.
And I know that 10 of your 10 housing units of your 74% that are in perpetuity are single-family homes. So the idea would be if those come up for sale, it would be incumbent upon the town, we could help make sure that all steps are taken to try to find someone who meets that affordability. And that's something, and one of the strategies to combat that is coming up on page, coming up in a couple slides. I'm not going to go through the next 3 slides. These are ideas of what could work in Raleigh, and some of these you'll see in other communities' plans, but some are specific to Raleigh, and I'm looking. One of the more specific ones would be explore innovative septic systems to support appropriate housing development. Specific to Raleigh would be investigate opportunities to amend your accessory in-law apartment bylaw. Some communities are looking at non-family members, some communities are
Tried
looking
that,
at...
and it was voted down at town meeting, just for,
Recently?
no, a while ago.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
A lot of communities are looking at detached accessory dwelling units. Maybe you've heard the term granny pod, but they're things that could exist in a large lot where you could accommodate a family member or some other person. The town of Littleton's done some really innovative things with this kind of zoning, so happy to share that.
The state would help us if they changed the current rule that you need a 2/3
I know.
majority to pass a zoning ordinance to majority, just a simple majority.
You're right.
That would go a long way.
You're right. So the 3 pages talk about the variety of strategies that you could employ. And again, these are left to the town's devices. I don't know, can you talk about how you're going to do full-time? Okay, well, so one of the great things is Kirk told me on the way in that he's shifting from part-time to full-time. And that's a great way to make inroads, stay on this, work with us and work with our other planners. Kirk has come to our quarterly planner meetings where we kind of nerd out and we talk about these things for a couple hours at a time. So we've really become,
I'm sure he does that well.
He fits right in. We want to be a good resource to the town, to all our towns. So I'm on the second to last slide, which talks about steps. The planning board did review this plan and voted to recommend approval to you all. And per the state, each community has to take a 2-vote process. So the planning board must review it and recommend approval, which has been done. And then the Board of Selectmen would need to vote to adopt. And then we could send your chapter of our regional plan into the Department of Housing and Community Development. You now have a plan in place. So that's the idea. And I'll stop talking, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, great, this is a fascinating plan, and it's obviously took a lot of work, and so I want to thank both NBPC and Kirk, our town planner, for all the work you've done. This is great.
It's supposed to be done, but
It wouldn't have been done otherwise if it hadn't been for this program that you're involved
But Kirk lent a ton of credibility to it. We had a town contact. It wouldn't sound town-like otherwise.
in. Right.
Yeah, and I think having Kirk increase his available hours, without that, I think we'd have a difficult time, because the planning
sure.
board is so busy.
Right.
But I think this is an opportunity, and he seems interested in it.
yeah.
And I know years ago, when I was first on the Board of Selectmen back in the early 90s, I was the designated member to the group in Peabody. I forget what it was, but They
Shore
got
Home Consortium.
North Shore Home Consortium.
I used to work for the
Consortium.
city of Peabody, and the guy who ran that consortium sat next to me.
Okay. Well, I was involved with that for about 2 years, and that time we had so much difficulty getting a piece of property to fit the income levels that it just became absolutely impossible. So I don't know if some of these kinds of issues have changed, but we finally end up, I think on a yearly basis now, we give our money to Ipswich just because we have no way of dealing with it.
It goes
So-
back into the pool.
Right.
Kirk does try and to make it to the meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
So hopefully if we can,
It's
you know,
about 10
there's been attempts in the past that really have kind of fallen through, and part of it was we really didn't have someone like Kirk
Right.
to follow through on it.
We could take that fairly nominal amount of admin money and turn that into making a unit affordable. If we did that every year, we'd be onto
Yeah.
something, so we
It's
can help
something
with that.
we definitely need to look at because it's a real problem. There's no doubt about that, so. I would make a motion to, what's the proper motion to join this?
To approve the plan that you have.
Approve the plan,
Have the draft.
housing production plan.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
But just to say that Karen's been executive director now 2 years?
18 months.
18 months, okay. And she has done a great job since she's taken over the reins. It's a different flavor for the meetings now. I've been on the commission now for, I think I'm in my 13th year, I think. And it's, you know, been a long time, but it's, Karen brings a new perspective, and I want to thank her for, you know, done a great job.
We're learning a lot.
Yeah.
We've got that one house.
Yeah, the house on the old Daniels Road.
Yeah,
I've been talking about that for a number of years. It's a well-built house. It needs a
Yes.
lot, it needs some work and some money, but
The town purchased it.
it belongs to the light department. It was exchanged in some property.
Yep, yep.
Plus, we've got the property at the Bread Street Farm that we've
Right.
Yeah,
really,
Before
because of
house.
lack of, with so many projects going on, it's kind of laid fallow. But we got the ability, or the land to do 4 affordable units over there. There's some complications with it, but, yeah, so there's potential
Yeah.
to do some of that type of stuff, so, you know, it's well worth looking at and trying to do whatever we can, and teaming up with other towns and with the MVPC. I think it really gives us some support that up till now we really haven't had. You know, we've been kind of on our own, so with all the other things going on, it just gets pushed off to the side, but this is an opportunity to
well, it's one thing
kind of
about
bring it up to the forefront, and if Kirk stays with it.
One thing about the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, you know, being on it, you get a flavor for what's going on in the other communities. And, you know, we sit at the table once a month, and all of a sudden, you know, we'll be talking about green crabs or something, because we're a coastal community. And they'll be talking about something completely different because they're urban areas like Lawrence and Methuen. And so you get this feel of the valley, you know. And the road system, that's, you know.
Right, roughly half our budget goes to transportation and planning where the dollars go, and Bob is the rep to that group, which is good.
And being a small community, sometimes we feel we get pushed aside by the Methuens and the Haverhills and Amesburys and Newburyports, that, you know, they have the staff to deal with these kinds of things where we really never have had that. So we kind of get left in the dust, and almost like we don't get as involved because we can't deal with it anyway. So this is an opportunity for us to jump in with both feet and, you know, do whatever we can. It's well worthwhile.
Great.
Bernie?
Yeah, how might this kind of feed into any effort to revisit the master plan?
I don't remember how old the master plan is anymore.
1998?
Okay. Well, the great news is the data we have here is the most recent. It is American Community Survey, but this could essentially be the one element
The
of
housing plan?
It could be the chapter about housing for a master plan.
Yeah.
You know, this data is about as good as it's going to get until the 2020 census comes out,
Right.
data comes out, which is 2021, 2022. So you could literally take this and apply it to a master planning effort.
Yeah.
It could help inform, is really. Another great thing about having a housing production plan in place with all this needs information is you're ready to go with grants. You really got a leg up in terms of demographics and understanding who you are, because a lot of the data you would need to apply for some grants is right there.
We also have the up-to-date open space plan now too, so that's a big part of that whole, we've got pieces of all this.
Right.
It's just a matter of trying to pull it together, and once again, it's a matter of having the staff available to do all that. So it's difficult, but it's something we need to move forward on.
Okay. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of accepting the plan?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
very nice presentation.
Nice to see you all.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Kirk.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We got your work cut out for you before you even start the extra time hours, right?
We're gonna get on that one.
I'm starting actually this weekend.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, our next appointment is at 7:45. So I'll take up old business number 5, which is discuss the Verizon cable license agreement. Town Council Tom Mullen has sent the board's Verizon's license agreement, which is attached. RCM Director Janet Morrissey has reviewed it and is satisfied. Is the board in agreement? Debbie needs to get back to Tom Mullen with the board's response.
I move that we do that.
What's that?
I say I move we do that.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, the last whole business item is discuss the June 30th, 2018 Independence Day celebration. So, let's discuss.
Well,
The problem with the electricity.
yeah, the power is a big problem. That, we need to address that. We
Yeah.
need to-
Yeah, that was the only hitch.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It's those outlets have got to be changed.
Can we ask the light department to,
I will do that.
yeah. Should we also plan next year on having a generator as a backup? I mean,
Well,
Well, typically, you wouldn't need it.
No.
yeah.
We haven't, this is the first year we've had
We
an
could have
issue
used
with
it.
Yeah, we could have used it the other day, but yeah. Okay, all right, so.
No, we get it going.
No, there's no
Yeah, a lot
reason,
of people-
there's no reason why if the power is
Yeah.
the way it is, there's no reason why we should need a generator, you know
Right.
what I mean? It's,
Well, I think we should have some discussions of how we run this. Maybe for the rec committee to take over the whole.
Well, they
running.
used to, and then we didn't have really a operating rec
Yeah.
committee, and then you were on the selectmen, and
Because,
you decided to spearhead this, and you have been for many years.
yeah, basically, we didn't, when we lost our director, or our,
yeah,
The committee members, we had a whole period of time where there wasn't any rec committee members, and
yeah, John Price was the last, he kind of ran it. Then when he left our employment, we basically stopped it for a couple of years. I was chairman at the time, and then we picked it up. I think, Bob, you probably were the one
Yeah, I
that picked it
kinda
up and started it
spearheaded
again.
it.
I think the problem is that we're getting old.
Well-
And we need, and there was a few people from the community this time that came in and gave some help. And I think it's,
I think we should talk about it
we need
again
someone to
and
spearhead it.
Review what we did,
Yeah.
How we set it up. I don't, it would have been nice if the hot dogs had been ready and, if the electricity didn't blow and everything.
It was a hot day too, so.
It was a hot
It
day.
ended a little bit early just because people were going home. And once the races were ended, they just left. They weren't hanging around, which
Right.
was,
And the other years, I bought, 4 tubs of the slush. I bought 5, we did all 5.
yeah, no,
We did 3.
We served all
did
5.
it was a hot day.
It was a hot day.
Right.
Well, the kids had a great time.
Yeah.
It worked out well. It's just, we're getting, this board, we're aging, I hate to say it, but we need help. And we need
Well, that's why I thought
someone to spearhead it,
maybe,
whether it's the rec. I mean, Tim Southall from the rec committee does all the races and does all the, he does 90% of 99% of everything except what we do for serving of the slush and stuff, so.
And as we come up, there's going to be some at the gazebo. There is a concert in August, so we really need to address the electricity before that. Okay,
Yeah.
that has to be addressed and taken care of. You just can't have somebody show up and all of a sudden,
We need a little,
all the circuits are blowing. That
Do we need to write a letter to the light board, or can,
probably, that would be the.
would be
the thing
just to
do.
put something in writing?
I think the light board already knows about
No,
it.
but I mean, I think we might be worth our while just
Yeah.
to have a memo.
I
If the
think
staff, if the town administrator would write a memo requesting that, might be helpful to the light board to just have something on record or on file,
Yeah,
so.
because we, you know, somebody plans an event, somebody wants to come to
Yeah.
use the common, and all of a sudden, you know.
Yeah, no, the power
what
has to
happened
be.
to us the other day happens to them, they'd be quite upset.
Yeah, no, if it does get used for occasional weddings and things like that, people come in looking to do a function there, so that, I think I'll make a motion, that we
Okay.
write a memo requesting the power be looked at by the light board.
Any seconds?
Second.
All's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
I
Abstain.
recuse myself.
Abstain.
And Mr. Chairman, we had donations from the board members. I would like to acknowledge Mr. Murray and Mr. Perry for donating some prize money, along with Miss Susan Herrick, a resident in town, that donated prize money. And we would like to prepare thank you letters for some of the donors and the volunteers. We had a nice group of people that stepped forward, Narissa Wallen and Elena Lynch and Melanie Brackencourt, and Mary Claire Condon Dazelle. We're very appreciative of their help. So we'll work on some thank you
And
letters.
Savage Seafood.
As it was, as every year, as a wonderful donor for this event. So
They
very
are.
appreciative.
All the ice came from them, and they took care of the slush for a couple of days for us, and
And the Grange for their loaning the second hot dog machine.
You don't need
did have
a
a
motion.
function.
Well, we can have a motion to authorize Chairman Pierce to sign those letters.
I'll
when
make the
they're
motion to
ready.
authorize the chairman to sign
Second.
those letters.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
It's just, you know, we sit here and ask for volunteers for things that we don't get much response. You know, there's vacancies on board, so if we can encourage people to get involved and help out, I mean,
Well, we really did.
with this time, we really had a number of volunteers that helped out. It was really a help for us and a help for the people that run the races. And
one of
We
the
would encourage that in the
larger
future.
jobs that we've had.
Yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, it was. Worked out.
They're very nice.
The kids had a good time.
Yeah, they had a
Yeah.
ball. Yeah. And they were cute. Okay, our last appointment is a 7:45 appointment with Edward Mirando of Mirando Brands LLC to discuss a proposal to operate a marijuana product manufacturer business. Enclosed in our packet is a letter of interest to operate an adult-use product manufacturer facility at 319 Newburyport Turnpike, a draft host community agreement, which has not been reviewed by town council, a security plan. The plan was sent to Police Chief Dumas this morning. We have not yet received any comments from him. Mr. Mirando has met with Town Planner Kirk Baker, and the type of business Mr. Mirando is seeking to open is considered business light industry. The location is zoned for business light industry. Mr. Mirando is seeking a letter of non-opposition from the Board of Selectmen for his proposed business and then to enter into a host agreement. Good evening, Mr.
Good evening.
Mirando.
Thank you.
Where exactly is 319 Newburyport Turnpike?
It's about a quarter mile up from Market Basket, the plaza.
Okay.
It's across the street from,
Is that new
Wait.
building that's under
yes,
construction?
yeah, next door to it.
Next
yes,
door to it.
Yes. mhm.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
in the building that's just
Yes.
north of there.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
It's a red spot.
This will be at the front of the building or the rear of the
The
building?
rear of the
Okay.
building, the rear of the building. I prepared a package.
Thank you.
I need one. You got another one?
Here.
Okay, we're all set.
This is actually the product that
I was
we
gonna ask
want to
you that.
manufacture. This is, I'll explain the product
Yes,
first.
that'd be nice.
We've dedicated the last 12 years creating a pharmaceutical grade delivery system. So what that means is we're able to exact dose any substrate. We can print on the substrate and the exact dosage of any type of medication. So what we've done is we've created, this is a sealed package. Open it up, it's childproof.
Better to open it before one buys.
It's adult-proof.
This is the product. This is a 5-pack nested cup. Each one of these cups will come with an exact dosage printed on the bottom of the cup. This has got a seal on it. Top cup is empty. That's to seal the package. And then that's the actual product. This happens to be a flavor element that's in here. This isn't a real product, but it's an example. The manufacturing that we'll do here won't be printed on the bottom of the cup. It'll be printed along the sides of the cup. And the reason for that is quicker dissolve time and so forth. I'll just open this up.
Oh, you want to demonstrate?
Yeah. And this is a citrus flavored, and there would be 50 milligrams of CBD in this cup for people to take medicinal, that need it for medicinal. It'll take a minute, but you'll smell the citrus, and it actually tastes very good. I wouldn't suggest drinking it, because these are just samples, but
That's what I-
So is this medicinal only, or is this?
no, this will be, it will be sold to marijuana dispensaries, cannabis dispensaries that have adult use licensing, along with any other recreational license issued by the state. That's it. We don't sell to the public whatsoever.
So you're not looking at any sales at all? You're
No.
not gonna have any customers going in buying
none
either medical
whatsoever.
or adult
No,
use?
sir.
You're just producing.
Yes, we're just producing, and we'll ship them to the dispensaries and the license dealers
Throughout
throughout
Massachusetts, or
throughout
just?
Massachusetts.
Okay.
Throughout Massachusetts, which is good for the town, because there's a much more, we're not limited to a local area for a revenue stream, so. I ran some numbers, just very conservative numbers, and they actually surprised me. There's a financial projection in the back there, but the numbers are unbelievable as far as revenue for the town and so forth.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you growing there too, or?
No. We get our product. We don't store anything other than,
Well, you're like a middleman. You get the growers, send it to you, and you
we'll
pack.
go to the growers and we'll buy a kilo of oil. That's the full plant extraction. And it's
Okay.
about the size of a quart bottle.
Okay.
That's the only inventory we have other than the cups.
Right. Oh,
These
okay.
cups are biodegradable. We buy the cups, we don't make the cups, so it's a laboratory production. We'll have 2 lab spaces in the facility that we secured, and that's where we bring in the equipment to encapsulate and make the cups.
So you're proposing to pay the town of Rowley a local impact fee, I think it's called, of 3% of
Yes,
your
sir.
gross sales, right?
Yes.
And you're projecting that to be $172,000 a year?
Yes, conservatively, the way that I came up with those figures is that when Massachusetts started the licensing process, they had 217 applications. That was just off the start. So I took the number 200, and if we were to sell 4 cases a month to 200 locations, that's 800 cases a month, and that's where those numbers are being derived from. A case of cups comes with 30 of these bags in them. The bags are sold for $20 a piece.
How many employees do you think you're going to be having?
I'm anticipating around 6. And then as things progress, we would probably have to run maybe an additional shift. So instead of 1 shift, it may be 2 to keep up with the demand.
So what, I guess, my question would be, what is the process for you to get the ability to sell from it? In other words, if you were selling to the public, you'd have to go through planning board and all those other things. In other words, you're just...
It's similar.
You're regulated by the Cannabis Commission?
Yes.
But it's a different process than going through to sell to the public? I gather, I don't know.
It's pretty similar, but we're not selling to the public, so we still have to have a community meeting to answer questions with the public.
You still have to be approved by the planning board.
Yes,
too.
exactly. Mhm.
So because you're not selling to the public, I would assume your authorization process would probably go quicker.
Yes, I would.
In other words, once you get your permits, you're bringing everything in from the outside to set up. If you get a space there,
Mhm.
you bring in your cups, you bring in your oil,
Exactly.
you bring in, you
Yep.
just do.
And then we ship it right back out.
And you ship it right
to
out,
the
so
same
you're not-
people we get
You're not
the
having
oil
a,
from.
storefront or any of those kinds of
Nope.
issues, that there's no parking issues in terms of the public
There's
coming and going, and
No, sir.
Yeah, we haven't
If
really
you-
looked at this yet,
There's a
but-
picture of the facility in there. It's very discreet. There's no windows. The only signage that we will need is just a little sign on the door for deliveries, and that's about it. It'll be very secure. What this is an innovative delivery system that's safe. You have elderly people that use CBD for medical issues. They go into a
What is CBD?
That's the cannabinoid that, it's not the
Not
THC that gets you high, it's the medical benefits that you get from one of the cannabinoids that come out of the process. And what happens is that if they go into a dispensary, they either have to buy an edible, where you can't get an exact dosage out of it, or they have to smoke something and inhale the carcinogens and so forth, which is not a good thing, of course, but this is a safe delivery system, and it's exact. This is 99.5% exact as far as the dosage is concerned.
well,
It's mainly for treating what symptoms?
It helps cancer patients, it helps arthritis, it helps people with anxiety.
I certainly like the idea that it's not selling directly to the public. We've had, I don't know, what, 3 so far, people that want to do dispensaries to the public, and I think this is a whole
different thing.
This is a whole different,
Yes,
I mean, it's the
exactly.
same product, but it's a whole
It's
different
more-
way of
it's more
doing
of a
business, and I think it's something that,
Right.
I'm quite encouraged by it. I mean,
We've tried to take
a
a
good
product
location
and
for it.
make it better for the consumers that are actually using it.
I came in with some thoughts about, well, I don't know, we need another place, but this is obviously a whole different
This is a
ballgame.
whole different.
I would be encouraged to give them a letter of support rather than just a,
Well, do we do that, are we voting on that letter now, or do we want town council and Chief Dumas to have a chance to look this over?
I think we
Mr.
give,
Chairman, we can certainly hold off on the host agreement
Yeah.
and the security plan, and
Right,
if you
we
would
should
like
hold
to
off on
have.
them. Okay. so
yeah,
go
in
ahead.
other words, we give him I would be in favor at this point, give him a letter of support. Obviously, it doesn't move forward until the planning board and we get a host agreement, but at least it'll give him the information he needs to say, okay, yeah, the town's supportive of this project.
Bernie?
Yeah, are there patents involved in this
Yes,
product?
yes. Mhm.
So
This is a
they-
patent program. It's taken us over 12 years to get a patent for this service, because it's not just for this particular product, it was developed for drug delivery. For example, if you had I use this scenario, a child with autism, and they take a whole regimen of drugs, and some of those drugs are, good-sized pills. We can take all of those ingredients, print them in the bottom of the cup as a picture of Mickey Mouse. They add their orange juice into it. They're going to get their exact dosage when they're supposed to get it.
Will you be selling products outside of Massachusetts, or just? within the
No,
state?
not for this product,
Right.
but other pharmaceutical, applications will be. Those won't be from me. There's a whole licensing process for each one of these different products, so.
So are you the licensee or the patent holder?
I am the licensee, but I'm also part of the patent process.
And the patent actually covers the kind of the modification of the biochemical into
Yes, yes, mhm.
a printable,
Yes, exactly.
like an inkjet,
Exactly.
basically.
There's no other process that can print to any type of substrate like this does.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we have a motion for...
I'll make a motion to
I'll
give him a
second.
letter of approval.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Good luck, sounds very interesting and promising, and,
And then what would the next steps be as far as review of the host agreement and,
And Mr. Chairman, I will, with the board's approval, I will get that off to town council. We'll work on the letter of support so that Mr. Moreno can bring that to the Cannabis Control Commission and get in the queue for that
and
license.
we would also have to have a public outreach meeting.
Right.
Where we advertise and bring the public in to answer their questions and concerns and so forth.
And we would also have the board approve, get some indication from Chief Dumas
Yes.
that he's approved the security plan. And then, you know, the planning board process will also address maybe in some of the same issues that you're discussing tonight, but that approval process is binding. They will have to give you approvals. So
Sure,
you may
sure.
want to start
Dr.
that
Mr. Baker,
process.
Mr. Baker's our town planner from the
He's
planning
met-
board.
Yes.
We've met, yeah, we've all
Yeah,
met.
we've been working.
We'd encourage you to move along as fast as you go. It sounds like it's a worthwhile program, so,
Great, thank you.
more than just selling cannabis. I mean, it's,
I appreciate
you know what I
your
mean?
support,
It's
yes.
definitely seems like it's a getting into what the whole program really should be is.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not smoking a joint.
Right.
It's, you know, it's a professional way to bring the dosage to those who need it.
Right.
Our next meeting is on the 16th, so if you could have some information either on the 16th or the 30th.
Okay.
Or you can get it into the town administrator.
Sure.
Over here.
Perfect.
Yeah, very good.
Do you have a business card?
I do. This is a different, I own a media company, so that's one of my cards for that. but-
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get this stuff out of here.
Thank you very much. It's quite impressive.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, good luck.
Thanks. Appreciate your support.
Okay, last is the minutes. Can I hear a motion to approve the minutes for March 26th?
Hear that motion?
Dave was absent.
Second.
All's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for April 2nd.
Give me that
Motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes of April 23rd.
Give me that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Oh, and June 28th.
Give me that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Lastly, announcements. The pool at the YMCA Camp Cedar Mill on Weathersfield Street in Raleigh is open for the summer season. The pool is free for Raleigh residents. The hours are Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. and on weekends from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It will be closed on July 4th for the Independence Day holiday. The band 3 Blocks East will be giving a free concert on the Town Common on Saturday, August 25th at 6 p.m. Information on the Pine Grove School project is available on the town's website at www.townofraleigh.net. The town has the following vacancies: Agriculture Commission Associate, Fence Viewer, 3 positions, Wood, Lumber, and Bark Inspector, Zoning Board of Appeals Associate, 3 seats, Parks and Recreation Committee, 1 seat, and Deputy Shellfish Constables, 2 positions.
Take care now.
For more information on these positions, please contact the Selectmen's office at 948-2372. The Raleigh Food Pantry is in need of donations. Donations can be left at the Raleigh Public Library. The food pantry is open on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and on Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Give me a motion to adjourn, Mr.
Any
Chairman.
seconds?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We're adjourned.